There's a force within you that can transform your reality in a matter of days, but few men dare awaken it. An energy so potent that ancient cultures revered it as sacred, philosophers studied it as the key to genius, and great leaders mastered it as the source of their irresistible magnetism. But what if I told you that you're wasting this force every day, literally throwing away the fuel of your evolution without even realizing it? What if the difference between an ordinary man and an extraordinary man wasn't in his genes, luck, or circumstances, but in how he directs this primal energy pulsing through his veins? Today we'll delve into the abyss of the most hidden truth about masculinity, the transmutation of sexual energy. I'm not talking about repression, moralism, or denial of your instincts. I'm talking about alchemy, transforming lead into gold. The moment you cease being a slave to your impulses and become the master of your destiny. Prepare to discover what happens when a man retains his vital essence for 15 days versus 150 days, and how this simple change can completely rewrite the narrative of your life. Modern society has created an invisible trap for the contemporary man. Since adolescence, we've been bombarded with the idea that sexual pleasure is merely physical release, that masturbation is natural and harmless, that satisfying every desire is synonymous with freedom. We live in a culture that transforms men into compulsive dopamine consumers, addicted to instant gratification, prisoners of a cycle that keeps them weak, scattered and mediocre. But that's not the complete truth. That's just the surface of a much deeper and more mysterious ocean. Napoleon Hill, in his profound work on the power of the human mind, revealed something few fully understood. Sexual energy is the most potent of all human energies, not just for procreation or pleasure, but as a creative force, as fuel for genius, as the source of the personal magnetism that distinguishes great men from ordinary men. Hill observed that all great leaders, inventors, artists, and entrepreneurs shared the common trait. They had learned to transmute their sexual energy into other forms of creative expression and achievement. But what exactly does sexual transmutation mean? It's not about denying your masculine nature or repressing your instincts. It's about elevating this energy from the purely physical plane to more subtle and powerful dimensions of human existence. It's about transforming the fire that burns into light that illuminates. It's about converting the impulse that extends into focus that conquers. It's about internal alchemy, where the raw metal of primal desires transmutes into the pure gold of achievement and purpose. When a man ejaculates, it's not just releasing bodily fluids, it's releasing vital essence, concentrated energy, creative potential. Ancient Taoists called this essence yin, the fundamental energy of life, the root of vitality, the source of inner strength. Vedic texts speak of ojas, the vital vigor that when preserved and refined transforms into spiritual and mental power. These ancient traditions weren't superstitions. They were profound sciences about human nature, based on observation and experimentation over centuries. On the first 15 days of semen retention, something extraordinary begins to happen in a man's body and mind. It's as if a flame that was constantly being extinguished finally has a chance to grow and shine intensely. Testosterone levels begin to stabilize at higher levels. The energy that previously dissipated in moments of instant gratification now accumulates, creating a growing sense of vitality and inner power. The man begins to notice that his mind is clearer, his thoughts more focused, his presence more magnetic. But this is just the beginning. It's like you're lighting the first spark of a fire that has the potential to become a powerful bonfire. At 15 days, you're only tasting the first drop of an ocean of possibilities. Your libido doesn't disappear, it transforms. Instead of being a force that dominates and enslaves you, it becomes fuel for your ambition, creativity, and determination. You realize you have more energy to dedicate to your projects, more clarity to make important decisions, more magnetism in your social interactions. During these first 15 days, many men report more vivid dreams, a deeper connection with their intuition, a growing sense of self-control and discipline. It's as if the energy that was previously constantly leaking is now being redirected to fuel higher aspects of your personality. You become less emotionally reactive, more focused on your choices, more present in your actions. The mental fog that many men carry without even realizing it begins to dissipate, revealing a clarity of thought they had long forgotten was possible. But here's the crucial point. 15 days is only a sample of the true potential. It's like comparing a lit candle to the rising sun. If you stop there, you will have experienced only a microscopic fraction of the power that resides within you. The true transformation, the profound alchemy, the complete metamorphosis from ordinary man to extraordinary man happens when you extend this journey into deeper and more challenging territory. At 150 days of conscious retention and active transmutation of sexual energy, you are no longer the same person. You are no longer the man who began this journey. Something fundamental has changed in your essence, in your presence, in your way of existing in the world. It's as if you've undergone an initiation, a symbolic death of the lower ego, and a rebirth as a more powerful and integrated version of yourself. Hashtag the 150-day transformation, unleashing your inner power. When sexual energy is consciously retained and directed over extended periods, it undergoes a refinement process that ancient masters understood intimately. First, it accumulates in the physical body, boosting vitality, strength, and endurance. Then, it ascends to the emotional plane, fostering stability, courage, and interpersonal magnetism. Next, it fuels the intellect, generating mental clarity, explosive creativity, and sharpened intuition. Finally, it touches spiritual dimensions, awakening a sense of purpose, connection to something greater, and an inner power that transcends the ordinary limitations of the personality. At the 150-day mark, you'll discover you possess a presence people feel before you even speak. Your gaze carries an intensity that communicates inner strength. Your voice resonates with a natural authority stemming not from arrogance, but from the deep integration of your vital energy. You become a magnet for opportunities, meaningful relationships, and synchronicities that seem to conspire in favor of your goals. Your focus and concentration reach levels you never thought possible. Projects that once seemed impossible now become not only feasible but inevitable. But this transformation doesn't happen without confronting inner dragons. The 150-day journey is an epic battle against conditioned patterns, unconscious compulsions, and the existential laziness that keeps most men in a mediocre comfort zone. You'll have to face your shadow, all the parts of yourself you would rather ignore. You'll have to question deeply ingrained beliefs about masculinity, sexuality, and power. You'll have to navigate moments of intense energy that can be uncomfortable, unsettling, and challenging. And this is precisely where most men give up. It's easier to revert to old patterns, temporary relief, comfortable mediocrity, than to confront the greatness that lies on the other side of discipline and self-mastery. But the few who persevere, the few who choose alchemy over conformity, discover a power that completely redefines their life experience. Imagine for a moment a man who for 150 days consciously channeled all his sexual energy towards his highest aspirations. Imagine the mental clarity of someone who doesn't waste their vital force on empty gratifications. Visualize the magnetism of someone who has mastered their most primal urges and transformed them into directed purpose. Feel the presence of someone who is no longer a slave to their desires, but a master of their own energy. This man enters a room, and the atmosphere shifts, not because he's arrogant or domineering, but because he carries an authenticity and inner power that are rare in the modern world. He speaks and people listen, not because he shouts or demands, but because his words carry the weight of integrated experience and wisdom gained through conscious discipline. He pursues goals and achieves them with a determination that seems almost supernatural, because his energy isn't constantly being drained by distractions and compulsions. Professionally, this man naturally excels. His capacity for deep focus allows him to produce a work of exceptional quality. His emotional stability makes him a natural leader, someone others instinctively trust. His elevated energy keeps him motivated and productive even when those around him are exhausted or demotivated. Opportunities seem to naturally arise around him, as if the universe conspires to support someone who has demonstrated such mastery over themselves. In relationships, he becomes a completely different partner. Instead of seeking in women an escape valve for accumulated sexual tension, he approaches them from a position of inner strength and completeness. He is not needy, desperate, or compulsive. He chooses because he chooses, not because he needs to. His sexuality becomes an expression of power and genuine intimacy, not a vicious pursuit of relief or validation. Women instinctively sense this difference. They recognize a man who is completely self-possessed, and that is profoundly attractive. And before you think I'm speaking of fantasy or exaggeration, let me share something crucial with you. If this message is resonating with your soul, if something within you is recognizing these truths as familiar, then you are not here by chance. You are ready to begin your own journey of transmutation. But a journey like this needs guidance, community, and the consistent support of other men walking the same path. So, if you feel the time has come to awaken the power that has always existed within you, subscribe to this channel now and hit the notification bell, because in the upcoming videos, I will share specific techniques, practical strategies, and the deepest secrets of sexual transmutation that I have learned over years of study and experimentation. Don't let this opportunity pass. Your transformation begins with a single decision, and that decision is now. But let's return to the profound 150-day journey, because there are aspects of this transformation that are as subtle as they are powerful, and only those who have experienced them can truly understand. Sexual energy, when retained for extended periods, doesn't simply accumulate like water in a reservoir. It undergoes processes of refinement and sublimation that alter the very energetic structure of the man. The first 30 days are usually the most challenging, because this is when you're breaking down deeply ingrained neurological patterns. Your brain, accustomed to regular doses of dopamine through sexual release, enters a kind of withdrawal syndrome. You may experience irritability, anxiety, intense dreams, and a feeling of pent-up energy you don't know how to channel. This is the moment when most men give up, thinking something is wrong. In fact, something is profoundly right. You're detoxifying from an addiction you didn't even know you had. Between 30 and 60 days, something interesting happens. The energy that initially felt turbulent and uncomfortable begins to stabilize and organize within your system. You notice your mind is clearer in the morning. Your motivation to work and create is more consistent, and your need for external validation has significantly decreased. It's like you're uncovering layers of yourself that have been obscured by years of energetic dissipation. Between 60 and 90 days, you enter what we could call the power zone. Your sexual energy, now refined and sublimated, begins to fuel higher aspects of your personality. Your creativity explodes. Projects you've been postponing for months or years suddenly become not only possible but urgent. You feel a creative compulsion, an almost physical need to express and materialize ideas. Your work capacity multiplies, but without the stress and exhaustion that usually accompany periods of high productivity. It's during this phase that many men report experiences bordering on the mystical. Precognitive dreams, intuitions that prove correct, synchronicities so precise that they defy rational explanation. It's not magic, it's the result of a mind that finally has enough energy to access deeper layers of consciousness, usually obscured by the fog of constant energetic dissipation. Between 90 and 120 days, you become practically a different person. Your physical presence changes. You move with more purpose. Your posture becomes naturally more erect. Your gestures carry an economy and precision that communicate controlled power. Your gaze intensifies, not with aggression, but with a depth that people instinctively feel. You speak less, but each word carries more weight. You act less, but each action has more impact. From 120 to 150 days, you enter what the ancients might have called mastery of the inner dragon. Sexual energy is no longer something you need to control or repress. It has become fully integrated into your personality. It flows naturally to fuel your ambition, your creativity, your magnetism, your inner strength. You no longer compulsively think about sex because that energy has found higher and more satisfying channels of expression. At this stage, you'll discover you possess a kind of charisma that's hard to define but impossible to ignore. People are naturally drawn to you, want to be in your presence, seek your opinion and guidance, not because you strive to impress, but because you carry an authenticity and inner strength that are rare in the modern world. You become a source of stability and inspiration for others without even trying. But perhaps the most profound aspect of this transformation is internal and spiritual. By 150 days, you will have discovered that sexual energy, in its most refined form, is spiritual energy. It's the creative force of the universe manifesting through you. It's the sacred fire that mystics of all traditions have recognized as the source of enlightenment and fulfillment. You are no longer just a man trained to control his impulses. You have become a conscious conduit for creative forces that transcend the individual personality. This transformation brings with it a profound responsibility. A man who has mastered his sexual energy can no longer live a mediocre or unconscious life. It becomes a guardian of this sacred force, responsible for using it for the greater good, for the creation of real value in the world, for the elevation of collective consciousness. He understands that he has received a power that few possess, and with that power comes the moral obligation to contribute to the evolution of humanity. The difference between 15 and 150 days of semen retention isn't just quantitative, it's qualitative, essential, transformational. It's the difference between taking a sip of water when you're thirsty and diving into an ocean of infinite possibilities. It's the difference between striking a match in the darkness and awakening an inner sun that illuminates not only your own life, but the lives of everyone around you. But here's the truth that few have the courage to face. This transformation isn't for everyone. It demands an emotional and spiritual maturity that most men aren't willing to develop. It demands that you confront your inner demons, that you question fundamental beliefs about pleasure and purpose, that you choose discipline over instant gratification, day after day, for months on end. It requires you to become someone you've never been before. Modern society doesn't prepare a man for this journey. On the contrary, it conditions them for mediocrity, for dependence, for the constant pursuit of temporary fixes that keep them weak and controllable. A man who has mastered his sexual energy is dangerous to a system that depends on compulsive consumers and disempowered workers. He is a threat to structures that benefit from male weakness and unconsciousness. Therefore, this journey is also an act of rebellion. It's a refusal to accept the diminished version of masculinity that modern culture offers. It's a conscious choice to awaken the ancestral power that has always existed within man, but has been deliberately lulled to sleep for centuries of conditioning and distraction. The man who completes 150 days of conscious sexual transmutation is no longer just an individual. He becomes a symbol, an example, living proof that human excellence is still possible. He carries with him the responsibility of showing other men that there is an alternative to mediocrity, that there is a path to greatness that doesn't depend on external circumstances, but on inner discipline and the conscious mastery of one's own energies. This journey doesn't end at 150 days. In fact, it's just begun. Because once you've tasted the nectar of sexual transmutation, once you've experienced the power that arises from the conscious mastery of your life force, you can never go back to your previous unconsciousness. You've become responsible for continuing to refine and elevate this force, for using it to create a positive impact on the world, for serving as an example to other men who are still lost in the fog of conditioned mediocrity. The choice is before you now. You can continue living as most men do, scattering your life force on fleeting gratifications, remaining in a mediocre comfort zone, squandering the divine potential that resides within you. Or you can choose the path of alchemy, transformation, transmutation. You can choose to discover who you truly are when all your energy is aligned with your highest purposes. But know this, if you choose this path, there's no turning back until you experience the strength of an integrated man. The presence of someone who has mastered his most primal urges, the creative power that arises from transmuted sexual energy. You'll no longer be content with less. You'll have to keep growing, evolving, refining yourself, becoming an increasingly powerful and integrated version of yourself. The sacred fire of sexual energy is burning within you at this very moment. The question isn't whether it exists. The question is what you're going to do with it. Will you continue wasting this divine force in moments of empty gratification? Or will you learn the ancestral alchemy that transforms ordinary men into living legends? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Your transformation from ordinary man to extraordinary man begins with a single decision. And that decision can't be postponed until tomorrow, until next week, until conditions are ideal. That decision needs to be made now, in this moment, in this sacred instant, when the universe is conspiring to reveal your true potential. The next 150 days of your life can be the most transformative of your existence. Or they can just be another 150 days of mediocrity disguised as normalcy. The choice is yours, and yours alone. But choose knowing that on the other side of discipline, on the other side of self-mastery, on the other side of self-mastery, on the other side of the conscious transmutation of sexual energy, awaits a version of yourself you never imagined possible. Unintegrated, powerful, magnetic, created, fulfilled man, the supreme version of who you always had the potential to become. The inner dragon is awakening. The only question that remains is, will you have the courage to ride its transformative flames to the heights of human achievement? Or will you continue to run from your own power, condemning yourself to a diminished and lackluster existence? The answer is in your hands. The moment is now. Your epic journey of transmutation begins with your next choice.